Hello, my name is Hákon and I'm head of youth at Reykjavik Football Club, which is a multi-sport club. We have 10 or 12 divisions in our club, but the football is the biggest one. But we also need to work with the other ones. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we work with young kids, many kids, in small areas, and how we want our coaches to work with those kids, and how we're trying to develop our coaches. So I've been in this club since I was 5-6 years old, played in the youth and in senior level, and I've also been working with the U6 and U10 or 14 teams since 1996. I'm now head of youth, so I'm responsible for all the coaching and what we are doing from the age of 5 up to the age of 19. And we are talking about all the players, not only the elite players. So my job is more and more become focusing on the middle player or the player who is starting to play football. So this is Reykjavik area. Breiðablik is the green color in Kópavogur, and the red color is Háká, the other football club in the Reykjavik area in Kópavogur. We have a good resource of kids. We have 3 buses in Kópavogur who collects the kids and bring them to the football club Breiðablik, Háká, multi-sport club, and also Gerpla gymnasium club. So 10 schools, and Breiðablik we collect kids from 6 or 7 schools. So we have a big number of kids and a big area to get those kids from. The other dots are the Reykjavik clubs. They are based on very specific areas. So this maybe explains why we have so many kids in our groups. This is Breiðablik numbers. We have 1,700 kids from U6 to U19. And for instance, we have 5-6 teams in U19 men's team. So it's a big headache of organizing training sessions for those group. We have 38 coaches and a lot of assistant coaches, mostly from our U16 or U19 team, both men and women. And it's very important for us to bring those kids into the training ground, to help us out with the training, and also for them to learn how they were as a football player when they started playing soccer themselves. So it's a kind of a cultural thing we have done for 20-30 years. We have 55 teams in national competition, and it's maybe 65-70% bigger than the next team in Iceland. So we are way ahead, but this is maybe the reason why I am still in this job, because there's always a new areas to work on. We have more kids coming up, and we need to find spaces and we need to find opportunities for each and everyone to play football. It doesn't happen. So in our U6 we have 140 teams, and they play once in a while in weekends, and in those teams we have, our aim is I always tell the parents not to win any competition in U8 or U10. So I go to a parent meeting, I tell them we are going to put 2 or 3 A teams in this competition, 2 or 3 B teams, 2 or 3 C teams, and we are going to divide them equally, because we do not want to make success at the moment. We are working on finding success maybe in 10 years' time. We want to have bigger squad of players who have developed as an A team or B team players, so we have a bigger squad to select from when they are 16, 17 or 18. So it irritates parents a lot, because we tell them we're not going to win the tournaments, but we need to explain to them why we are doing this and why we are not going to this. But of course, it's not fair to maybe the best children not to be selected once in a while. But we do it in one tournament in U10, and that's the only time our best 8 or 9 kids go together to a tournament, probably trying to win the tournament. But in all other tournaments, we are dividing all the kids, even though it's A, B, C, or D. So this is what we are trying to tell our coaches to do every moment, and we are trying to do it in every level. And for instance, in our U12 team at the moment, we have 2 equal A teams in the winter tournament, and that gives us opportunity for maybe 20, 30 players to play on a higher level than only 10 or 12 players. So last year we had 1,200 games, so it's a lot of organization for us. This is to give you an example of the number of players we have, and of course we are thinking about dropouts all the time, but we want our kids to try out for 2 or 3 different sports when they are 6 to 12, 13, 14, as long as possible. So sometimes around 12, 13, 14, they decide I'm going to basketball, gymnastic, or football, or whatever. So a dropout doesn't mean always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing because they are selecting another sports. So the good thing about this is we have a lot of women players coming in, and it's increasing, and we're in a big wave of women football, so we need to keep up following what's happening there, and we need to start to organize the women football more and more better for us. This is a facility we have. We have one football house. We have a lot of grass pitches during the summertime, and we have an artificial grass pitch 2 kilometers away. So our club is divided, separated. So every day we have 300, 400, 500 kids 2 kilometers away training, and another group of players in the football house training. So we need to divide the coaches and the equipment and everything. So it also needs a lot of scheduling and so on. So our environment is puts us into, because we are working in a half pitch with 30, 40 players, and sometimes I will explain later, we work with 80 or 90 kids in half a pitch. So we need to be organized, and we need to think fast and act fast when we get those kids to training. And that's sometimes very hard for our coaches to adapt to this situation. What it brings us is maybe we are always getting areas smaller and smaller, so we need to think and be creative about how we are going to have our training sessions. And we work on small spaces, so we have a lot of technical players, I think, and we have a lot of midfield players in the national teams over the last few years. But the minus is maybe we don't have any attackers at the moment. But that's something we are okay with, because we want our coaches just to work with the space we have. This is for just to give you an example of how the indoor hall works. We have a football U10 training on the left hand, we have a strength training in the middle, and we have then a U8 training on the right coming up. We have a lot of girls in the middle, they are attending to our training, next training, and so we have parents on the sidelines. They can follow up and see every training if they want, and it doesn't bother us a lot. But of course, with a group of 40 coaches, we need to explain to some of the coaches that we need the parents to be on the field so they can see and we can connect to them. So my job as a U6 coach, I think it's important to have an organized and scheduled setup for the kids and for the parents. And for instance, on Saturday, I set up a lot of games, and I explain to the parents what we are playing. I let the parents be involved. They take care of playing 2 against 2 or 3 against 3. And I just walk around and talk to the parents about why we are playing 1 against 1, why we are playing 2 against 2, why we want the kids to dribble with the ball all the time, why we don't want the kids to pass the ball too much when they are 5 or 6 years old. We wanted to have the ball for as many minutes as possible on the field. And I'm just explaining to parents what they are going to see when the kids will be 6, 7, and 8. So if we get the parents early on board and can explain to them what we are doing, then the next steps will be easier for us. So this is maybe a typical day of U10 training. We have, on the left side, we have half of the pitch is 8 stations, and we divide 80 kids, and we need to act fast and divide them 40-40 or similar like that, and put them into training stations of 4 times 8 or 10 kids in every station. So we mirror this training, and we do exactly the same for both groups. Sometimes we try to do another setup with take maybe 20, 30 best players in 2 or 3 stations, and the other ones in 4 or 5. So we have 2 or 3 setups for our training sessions. This is an old picture of our coaching staff, maybe 10-year-old, but the good thing is we have maybe over half of those coaches have been there for a long time, and we think it's important for us to have those coaches in U6 to U10, and sometimes we bring in quality coach with U19, and he also helps out with U6, because we want the parents to see we have also a quality coach on the lower level. Most of the coaches have UFA A and UFA B license, and we try to put all the young coaches also into UFA C, and we try to develop the coaches as well. So they have UFA B and C. They have been here for a long time in this club, so for instance, it's easy for parents and relax the parents a lot. They know we have a coach in U16 or U19 team who has been there for 3, 4, 5 years, and it relaxes the atmosphere a lot. But also for me, I need to break up those teams sometimes as well, because if they are staying for too long time, it's not good either. So we need to be flexible and try to break up. And maybe it's our biggest job at the moment, because we have 3, 4, 5 coaches in each age group, and they need to work together. And how also 3 or 4 coaches work together is a difficult thing to find out. And it's sustainability. They stay here for a long time, and we also like to bring our young players, develop young players who's not going to play football anymore. They go into coaching at the age of 16 or 18 or 19, and they become good coaches as well. And we have most of the coaches in, for instance, U12 team, 5 out of 6 coaches have been players with our club. So, and maybe now we have 20 coaches who have played for the club, so they understand the culture and what we are trying to teach at any level of the club. So that's also important for us and for me as a head coach. I do not need to tell them everything about everything. They understand a lot on their own. So this is bringing young players into coaching positions, and they need to think fast, act fast, be open-minded, and also be very good to all of the kids. And especially, I'm trying to tell my coaches to look out for those kids who work with the walls, are afraid of joining the training ground, maybe are bullied in school or just before training and so on. So we need to find out what every kid, how they act, how they are like, and my biggest job is to tell the coaches to give those kids a feedback who have problems. So for me, the coaches need to be patient, and in our aim is that player development is a marathon, it's not a sprint. We are not going to have success right now. Hopefully, in the near future, we will have success somehow. So, thank you.